Oh my. G'day everyone, this is Tantrum McNally. So, Star Trek Beyond is coming out really recently, and as furries we like to, we kind of delve in a little bit of the nerds over here. We're considered the bottom of the chart of the nerdy fandoms. It's like you're the lowest of the tiers. But that means that we're just a little more cultured is all, is that we understand all the premises of everyone above us and our own culture, so when it comes to Trekkies, when it comes to Star Wars geeks, when it comes to the Pokemon geeks, when it comes to the gamers and all that stuff, we kind of have a little bit of a threshold in all of those places. So, an interesting thing happened when with this new announcement about the Star Trek Beyond character, particularly Sulu. So, it has been announced that in the movie Star Trek Beyond, it is revealed that the character Sulu is gay. Which, of course, life imitating art, you know what I mean? It's like, well, the actor who used to play Sulu is gay, right? George Takei. Everyone knows George Takei. Everyone loves George Takei. So George Takei's got to be thrilled about it, right? And no, he's actually not. He was actually disappointed. He said that, you know, it goes against Gene Roddenberry's vision. Gene Roddenberry's vision of this character, you know, and was not to have him be gay, basically. And I can understand that. I can understand you know, people feeling animosity towards the Abrams version of the Star Trek franchise, but it's very clear at this point that this franchise is not the same. You know what I mean? At this point, so it really kind of makes his point a little moot, just a tiny bit, just a teeny tiny little bit, and that's just the gist of it. I mean, come on, man. I mean, come on, Takei. Do I have to explain fifth dimensions to you? Do I have to explain the multiverse theory? Like, I don't... Here's the thing. I'm not a string physicist. I can't go into the details of the multiverse theory. But the multiverse theory at this point is very much a thing. It is very much a thing that's understood, particularly in narrative structures for sci-fi. It's like the multiverse theory is basically that events... Every instance of the world around us. Basically, every decision that is made creates a branch. And that branch leads to what is called a multiverse theory. There's multiple universes in parallel, running kind of in tangent with one another, based upon decisions made and actions. So in the first movie of the Star Trek, of this new Star Trek universe, which was created by Abrams, you had this Romulan guy come from the future of the Gene Roddenberry universe, and basically he's messed things up in such a regard that it completely changed the canon of the universe in which Abrams was trying to discuss. But even then, like even before that instance, like the Abrams universe, you could tell is a little bit different than the Gene Roddenberry universe. For one, it seems like the Abrams universe has a lot more lens flare. So, we can discern that the lighting companies that existed in the Gene Roddenberry universe that were adding lighting to the whole frickin' spaceships and stuff like that don't exist, or were replaced by a different contractor who had really bright lights that make your eyes go, ah! Alright? So that's the one difference. Another difference is it seems like in the Gene Roddenberry universe, Apple never really took hold. And what I mean by that is that the tech kind of looks kind of primitive in the Gene Roddenberry universe, don't it? I mean, you guys got like computers that have like little blinky lights, but they all look kind of very solid and blocky, and they're not sleek, you know what I mean? So the Abrams universe seems to go on this whole like futuristic like, ooh, look at how Apple-fied it is. You know what I mean? It's like we have these weird little panels, and everything's all smooth and white and sleek and pretty, and it sort of looks like an Apple product, an Apple store gone crazy in a starship. You understand what I'm saying? So clearly, even before this Neuro guy came back and screwed everything up, something in the past was already screwed up and created a completely different universe than the Gene Roddenberry's vision. Now, So when we think about stuff like that, we think about, well, how much impact does it have on the characters? Like, because that's the main complaint here. Sulu's like, well, my character's not gay. He's straight. I played as a straight man. And guess what? People are going to, a lot of people are doing the wrong thing and they're going, well, is the Sulu in the original Star Trek gay? And the answer to that question is no. No, he's not. He had a daughter he talked about having a daughter in Generations, for one, which, it doesn't really prove anything, I guess, because you could adopt a kid and be gay, I guess, but like Takei said, Gene Roddenberry had this character be straight. That was in his profile. The character is a straight character. And that Gene Roddenberry didn't want to push that envelope at that particular time. He wasn't against it, but, that there was the interracial kiss, which at the time was controversial, and that was enough to kind of like stem him away from trying to push too many social agendas at the time. Though he still pushed a little bit, he didn't push him overall. He did it in a more subtle manner. That being said, it also brings up this interesting style about art imitating life as opposed to life imitating art, but also like this kind of symbiosis with the whole thing. Because Gene Roddenberry was being very subtle about his social integration and wanting a more integrated society, it kind of did influence people in the future to go, maybe we should look to trying to be like that. But he didn't push it so far as to be extreme. So basically he found the line in which he could try to move society forward without being so forward that society freaked out and got, oh my god, I can't know, this future is horrifying, I can't deal with it. So it is a interesting way of striking a balance between the two, and it's an interesting discussion about life imitating art and art imitating life, and the give and the take between the artist who sees a vision of the future that they want to project upon the present versus the present versus individuals in the present who want to keep things the way they are. That kind of like give and take. So that being said, Sulu in the Gene Roddenberry universe is straight. But that doesn't mean that the Sulu in the Abrams universe necessarily has to be straight. I mean, come the heck on with this, that the characters have to be the same. Now, Spock and Kirk are somewhat similar to their characters. They're most similar to their characters in their respective universes. They have a little bit of differences, but overall, their character dynamic is still the same, because it's a very popular character dynamic. But as far as, like, let's take the thought of Khan. So, come on, Abrams. Roddenberry's Khan was so much more badass. I'm sorry. I just had to say it. I know I try to keep objective and not be opinionated, but like the Gene Roddenberry's Khan was so much better. The way they covered him in the movie, like the second movie, when they revealed that Khan was the main villain, it was so much more like, ooh, like they brought him back because he was in the television series. So all the people who watch the television series are going, oh my god, they brought him back, and oh my god, there he is, oh my god. And they hear the name and they're like, oh god. Like some of them, like they reveal it little bits and pieces at a time so that people who watch the show would be like, oh no. Like they see the little hint that it's Khan and they go, oh no. And then when it actually reveals that he is Khan, it's like, oh god, they did it, oh my god. And people nerd it out. When it happened in the darkness, beyond, what was it called? I can't even remember the name of the movie, it's so forgettable. Into Darkness, like the second one from Abrams' series, and Mr. Cumberbatch reveals that he's Khan. It's like, really? It's not like I'll go, oh my gosh, it's Khan. It's like, oh, it's Khan. You're Khan? You're not Khan. No. You look like a pencil pusher. Like you don't look like someone who's genetically enhanced to be like a super soldier. You look like a scrawny pencil neck geek-ish kind of character. I mean, the original Khan kind of had this Fabio flair to him. He looked like he looked like a Viking, like a blonde guy, and he's like muscle, he's ripped, he's in his family, which is active. You can see like they look like strongmen, and he had cunning intellect, and like the cunning of the original Khan seemed a little more like a little more chessy with Kirk. The Kirk and Thing dynamic was just so much better in the second movie of the original Star Trek movie series than it was in this one. This one, it kind of felt like he was a little blood hungry and vengeful, but he never really got too clever. You know what I mean? And it just didn't work. I personally feel it just didn't work, and it made the movie a little bit forgettable in the long run. And maybe I'm wrong. People will disagree with me. That's fine. But considering that, you know, as far as like, so getting back on the original topic, you know, Sulu being gay is not as much of a stretch as Khan being Cumberbatch. You know what I mean? It's not that far of a stretch. It's not that big of a stretch. And hey, you know, it's a multiverse theory. The Sulu in this universe happens to be gay. Now, interestingly, that leaves the whole premise of, well, is it a choice or is it genetic? Because if fifth dimensions and multi-universes occur because of choices that are made, does that mean that, you know, maybe they're both bi? No, that gets weird, okay? So maybe Sulu has different parents. Maybe in this universe, you know, Sulu has different parents. Maybe the characters have different parents because they look a little different than their original counterparts, right? So maybe genetically the genetics that make up who they are different. Because, hey, Khan looks a lot different. You know what I mean? He looks extremely different. And maybe I give him a little bit too much of a hard time of being the worst, the Abrams Khan being a terrible Khan, but he's not terrible. He's not as good. You know what I mean? So he's not as believable to me to be Khan because it's hard. It's a hard thing. It's a hard character to follow up, I'm sure. But you know, they definitely look a lot different. So there's definitely something that happened within this universe that made these characters have different genetic makeups. And, you know, genetics, you know, is basically a roll of the dice. It's like, here are all your characteristics that are all lined up for you. And it's like, okay, well, in a different universe, maybe those places become a little different. You know, so maybe the character of Sulu is most certainly straight in the Gene Roddenberry universe while being certainly gay in the thing. Now, I mean, come on. I mean, it's not the biggest controversial thing that happened versus Gene Roddenberry's vision. Gene Roddenberry's vision of Romulan was that the planet was still in one piece. You know what I mean? That entire planet is gone in this canon. It's gone. And the impact of that has actually kind of shifted everything around, where they actually meet Khan earlier in the series than when Romulan was still intact, because it pushed the Federation to a more militant behavior because somebody just destroyed a frickin' planet. So sort of like 9/11 had an impact on the United States in its foreign policy, we see parallels with the loss of Vulcan having impacts on the Federation's foreign policy, being a lot more aggressive, wishing to be a lot more aggressive, and that's kind of what the second movie was all about. So, that canon aside, let's talk about his second critique, Takei's second critique, and that was, you know, you shouldn't have to have a closet in this century. Gene Roddenberry didn't want a closet. He didn't want a closet, basically, in this century. You shouldn't have to have a closet. Now, we don't see how Sulu reveals that he is homosexual to the audience. But from one of the one who plays Scotty, Sean Penn, actually did like a whole sort of counter argument, and he did talk about how, you know, Sulu doesn't really come out per se, but it is revealed in kind of conversation, and when it hasn't come up before, but then for some reason it did come up, and it's revealed. So he's indicating that it's not really a big deal, and that in this particular century that, you know, being gay is not seen as anything strange. So, you know, they don't come out per se, but it just comes up in conversation, which a lot of people will be looking out for, and if that is the case, then that's not a problem. But the interesting thing is that when Takei says, well, Gene Roddenberry's vision of that future is that gay people wouldn't have to come out of closets, that's an interesting statement. Because I recall instances in the Gene Roddenberry canon where gayness did sort of come up, and it was kind of treated with it was kind of treated, you know, with that kind of like, it's hard to explain, but it's like there were two straight male characters who got insinuated that they might be in a gay relationship, and they treated it as if it was like something that, oh, no, like it. And what I'm talking about is there was a scene in Deep Space Nine, which I recall, between Miles and another character, and I can't remember the exact scene for the life of me. I know some Star Trek nerds are going to watch this, so if you remember that exact scene and what episode it was from, then great, please provide it in the comments below, because I can't remember. I saw this scene like in 2009 when I was watching some sci-fi with the friend I had in New Jersey. So the characters portrayed themselves like somehow the topic of homosexuality sort of came up in a kind of indirect manner. And the way that the two characters behave, whom are both straight, I'm pretty sure, you know, kind of treated it as if it was like, you know, they were questioning their masculinity. They're like, oh, no. Like, they were distancing themselves in kind of like a hodgepodge, like, silly manner. And it was kind of weird to me. Like, it wasn't harmful to gay people. Like, the scene wasn't harmful to gay people in and of itself. But it did kind of make it seem like it was still a taboo topic. Like, being homosexual or being insinuated as being homosexual was still a taboo topic. And it kind of made me go, huh. Like, they clearly didn't have a problem with it, but they just didn't want to be insinuated as it. As if there was something wrong with being insinuated as being gay. Which, if there's something wrong with being insinuated as being gay, that means that there's something there, that something would happen. Like, that it seems to indicate that something still would go wrong if people saw you as gay when you're actually not gay. Which, in a universe where that shouldn't matter. You know what I mean? You shouldn't have to go, oh, no. You shouldn't have to seem like you're putting on kid gloves and pushing it away with oven mitts and pushing it away. You should seem like, oh no. Like, you should just say, like, nah, we're not gay. It's just like, we're just coworkers. You know, it should be just like, just dismissive. Without any, oh gosh, don't let them think that. Because I could get in trouble if they think that, you know. And this is Deep Space Nine, which is in the Gene Roddenberry canon, which is even beyond the Star Trek and the Next Generation canon. It's actually supposed to be very late in the Gene Roddenberry timeline, or what is considered the Gene Roddenberry canon. So the perception of George Takei that in the Gene Roddenberry universe being gay is not seen as something that needs to be come out of the closet is kind of sketchy. Because it sort of isn't that way. Because there are instances in which I could see, you know, that it's an uncomfortable subject in the Deep Space Nine series. And it being an uncomfortable subject, now what this is once again life imitating art, in the time that the Deep Space Nines and the Voyagers is, homosexuality in the real world was still very much a very uncomfortable topic. So the characters portraying it in the show still felt it being uncomfortable-ish. And so in this modern one, it's like, oh, it's no longer a big deal, because right now it's no longer as big a deal as it was back when that other show was made. So it's interesting in that regard that Takei sees that this universe is that way, when it's kind of evident that it quite isn't. You know what I mean? That maybe this universe has a better portrayal of gay characters than the Gene Roddenberry universe does. But I'm sure, like, here's the thing. I am not a Trekkie. so I don't have the background of precise, like, knowing episodes and knowing all the things. So this is kind of up for debate. I'm sure some Trekkie will see this at some point, and they'll go, well, no, this is why Gene Roddenberry's universe is, and this is why this is. And so it'll be an interesting debate to have. And ironically, it'll probably be more contentious than any other topic that I've done, political or not. Because nerds, white people, we're not white people, nerds, just nerds in general argue about nerdy things. You know what I mean? We debate about nerdy things, and that's what we do. And I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world. There's black nerds, there's Asian nerds. We all like to argue about nerdy things, and that's great. That's great because, at the end of the day, there are worse things that we have that can be taught, like, that are in this world, and hopefully that those things will get resolved. And I'll talk about those topics in the future too. But for now, this has been T.S. McNally. Thank you very much for watching, and remember, I will be having a vote off of topics in my Twitter feed. So at Tranter McNally, you can go ahead and go to my Twitter account, and it'll be a pinned tweet, and you can vote on what topic I will talk about next. The 3 topics that I'm right now deciding will be voted upon are, we're going to still leave America Black and Blue for the topic of basically the conflict between police officers and black Americans. That's still going to be a topic that you can vote for, and because it's certainly not going away anytime soon, unfortunately. Pokemon Go is still going to be a topic that you can vote for, and the one's going to be Zootopia, which kind of combines the two in a strange way. And of course, you'll always have the option of doing an other. So if you think of any topics that are not those 3 topics that you want me to cover, within the fandom, without the fandom, wherever, whenever, I'll ramble about anything. I am a rambler, all right? So get out there, vote early, vote often, and I will see you later. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good week, guys.